Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We're going to be diving into chapter 4 and in chapter 3, and I did kind of forgot to kind of bring this out. In chapter 3, we saw the command by Nebuchadnezzar to build this statue, this human statue, which is kind of interesting in light of the fact of the dream that he was given and the interpretation of the dream. He then commands to build this 90-foot, a tall statue, and then commands everyone to worship the statue. Now, here's what I kind of forgot to bring out last time. And this is always kind of a hotly debated question too. Where was Daniel during this period of time, right? In other words, Daniel's not mentioned in chapter 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was, and we're going to see that if Daniel was there, Daniel would not have bowed. Chapter 6, we're going to see where Daniel will not bow. So the question is, where was Daniel at? Now, some speculate he might have been on some long journey. Okay. But the answer to the question is this. We're not told. Okay, so we don't go beyond what Scripture says. We certainly shouldn't try to add to it. Now, some of the thoughts, speculations is, okay, but that's not what the Scripture just doesn't tell us. And it is very interesting that in this event that Daniel is absent. But we do see one of the most profound to me response to an ungodly command. And I think this is something that we all can take as Christians, as believers, as saints of God, that no matter what the world tells us, that we should never bow. That whether it's a husband, whether it's a boss, whether it's a community, whether it's wanting to fit in, okay, that if someone tells us to do something that is contrary against God's command, we don't bow. We will say no. And that may cost you. Now, in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's case, it didn't cost them because God delivered them. In fact, their statement was, we know God can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow. So in other words, they didn't know if they were going to get delivered. In a sense, they knew God can. That wasn't the issue. Well, I take that back. I think they did say that. Let me correct myself here. Let me go back for one minute here. I want to correct myself. Oh, because I think he did say this. Hold on. Let me go back. Let me see if I can find it. I'm going to correct myself because all right. Here it is, right here. It says, verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from the blazing fire, and he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if he does not rescue us, we want you to know to the king that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden statues. Now, the reason why I'm bringing pause to this, I'm going to look it up right quick, is because I think in other translations, let me look it up right quick here. Um, I believe in the King James and then the New King James. I think that, here we go. Let me see, verse 17. I'm going to read this. So this is, I'm going to read this from the New King James. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fire furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. Now, so I'm not going to get into now the scholastic debate here about why there's a different take on that. Okay, that's why when I said that, I had to kind of I read from the Holman Christian Standard Bible, but okay, the New King James renders it differently. All right, but I'm not going to get into then that. I'll let that debate go to the scholars. Um, and in fact, I listened to one of the scholars of the Holman Christian Standard Translation. He had the call-in show that I could probably ask him. But anyway, all right, chapter 4. Okay, chapter 4. A little Bible study there, a little kind of debating issues, translation issues, what it comes down to. All right, chapter 4, verse 1 says, King Nebuchadnezzar, to those of every people, nation, and language who live in all the earth, may you. Now, he's writing this letter. This is sort of an after-the-fact letter. He's going to write a letter, and then he's going to tell you why he's writing this letter here. Now, up until this point, remember, he's kind of been professing, yeah, you guys are your God is the greatest God, but then his arrogance, you're going to see his pride, and now we're going to see one of the greatest example of God humbling someone, and more than the humbling, the response to the humbling is going to be profound. So he says to every people, nation, language who live in all the earth, may your prosperity increase. I am pleased to tell you about the miracles and wonders that the Most High God has done for me. How great are his miracles, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So right off we see, wow, what a humbling. Now, this is coming from the heart. This is coming from a humbled man. This is coming from a changed heart that God changed. Verse 4, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and flourishing in my palace. I had a dream, and it frightened me. And while in my bed, the image and visions in my mind alarmed me. So I issued a decree to bring all of the wise men. Why? Did they not? If you had this dream, Neb, why, right? Okay. So he says, so I issued a decree to bring all of the wise men of Babylon to me in order that they might make the dreams interpretation known to me. And when the diviners, priests, mediums, Chaldeans, and astrologers came in, I told them the dream, but they could not make its interpretation known to me. You didn't believe them the first time, Nab, that's why. Finally, Daniel, named Belteshazzar, the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy God is in him, came before me. I told him the dream. Belteshazzar, or Daniel, head of the diviners, because I know that you have the spirit of the holy God, and that no mystery puzzles you. Then why didn't you call him at first? Okay, I digress. Explain to me the visions of my dream that I saw and its interpretation. In the vision of my mind, and as I was lying on my bed, I saw this. There was a tree in the middle of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew large and strong. Its top reached to the sky, and it was visible to the ends of the earth. So this great tree, right? Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit was abundant, And on it was food for all. Wild animals found shelter under it. The birds of the air lived in its branches, and every creature was fed from it. As I was lying in my bed, I also saw visions of my mind, an observer, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called out loudly, "Cut down the tree and chop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stumps with its roots in the ground, and with the band of iron and bronze around it, in the tender grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew from the sky, and share the plants of the earth with the wild animals. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal for 7 periods of time." The word of this word is by the decree of the holy observers. The matter is the command from the Holy One. So this is so the living will know that the Most High is ruler over the kingdom of men, and he gives it to anyone he wants, and sets the lowly of men over it. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now, Belteshazzar, tell me the interpretation, because none of the wise men of my kingdom can make the interpretation known to me, but you can, because you have the spirits of the holy God. Now, so this kind of, we have seen how God has chosen to deal with Nebuchadnezzar. And keep this in mind, he is ruler of the mightiest kingdom, right? And all of the image, the head of gold, his kingdom is the most powerful, the mightiest of the kingdom. Now, it's kind of interesting that now God then chooses how he chooses to deal with Nebuchadnezzar, right? Now, notice this statement here. He says, this word is by decree of the observers, and the matter is a command from the Holy One, so that the living will know that the Most High is ruler over the kingdoms of men, and he gives it to anyone he wants, and sets the lowliest of men over it. I want to kind of stop there. I want to kind of focus on this for a moment, because I think there have been kind of thoughts that have kind of evolved, we could say even over the centuries. And that is that, and I want to say, I'm going to look this up while I speak, because I want to say deism. Deism. I'm going to see if I could deism. So, and I'm just doing a quick Google search here. And it says that deism is the belief in the existence of a supreme being, specifically of a creator, who does not intervene in the universe. The term is used chiefly of an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th century, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's the point I wanted to bring out, that there are people who think that God is kind of like absent. So they mistake the lack of visibility with the act of what is going on, what they can't see. Now, when we say behind the scenes, that's probably not the best description, because remember, there are two different dimensions. There's the spiritual realm, and then there's the physical realm. We cannot perceive. We don't have the capability of perceiving the spiritual realm with our 5 senses. But what we see in scripture that we get from time to time is a revelation that God is ruling. Okay? We see this in the book of Job, right? That God, and by the way, this revelation is also something that is going to, I think, stun some of our theological conceptions. Job is one of those, because you see this, the first two chapters of Job, that opens the book where Job is minding his business, but we see in heaven, okay, that the sons of God come to present themselves, and then Satan came in the midst. Now that right there is troubling to us, because didn't Satan get kicked out? I mean, why was Satan in heaven? Why did he have access? And he was allowed access, and then God asked him, "Where you been? What you been up to?" Right? He said, "Going to and fro on the earth." If we want to add an interpretation to that, Peter said, "Looking whom I made to devour." But then God says, "Guess what? Have you considered my servant Job?" So remember, God offers Job up, and God says, "There's none like Job, man. He is the most upstanding man, full of integrity." Job said, "Yeah, I've been watching him. Yeah, I've been watching him, but you got a hedge around him. Take the hedge down, and I'll make him curse you to your face." God says, "Won't happen. I'll tell you what, you can do that. Hedge is gone. You can do whatever you want, but don't take his life." Now, what's interesting about this story, so Satan leaves the presence of God and destroys Job's life. Takes his wealth, even kills his kids. I think he had like 10, 7 sons, 3 daughters. Take all his wealth, take everything he has, except his nagging wife. I can't do it. And I say that only because she was the one that was like, okay, look, all this that we're going through here, we're in the poorhouse, okay, just curse God and die, right? Okay. And he was like, okay, woman, you sound like a foolish woman. Then you had this second, you had this second one, this second, you have a second encounter, and he says, Job says, guess what? God tells Satan, my man is still holding his integrity. He says, okay, you got me on that one, but take his health. Well, God says, take his health, but don't take his life. Here's the point I wanted to bring from this. God was controlling that. And then if you notice, Satan did not take his life. Satan operated under the parameters in which God commanded him. There was another scene that surrounds the destruction of King Ahab, and there's this heavenly scene, and all of the sons of God are there, all of the angels are there, sitting there, and these spirits. Not only they don't even seem to be godly spirits. We don't. It's kind of undetermined. But God basically is like, okay, so how are we going to bring Ahab to his destruction? So one spirit came forth and said this, another one said that, but then finally a spirit came and says, "I'll go and I'll persuade him to go up to battle." That was the whole thing. I'll persuade him to go up to battle. I'm going to be a lying spirit among his prophets. God said, "Go, and you will persuade." Here's my point. God was in control of the entire scene. God was in control of that. So a lot of times, even though we cannot see, because we don't have the capability of seeing in the spiritual realm, just keep this in mind. God is the one, he is ruling, and when we think about like situations that's going on right now, like why are certain kingdoms in operation, God is handling that. God is sovereign. Okay, God is sovereign. All right, we're going to pick this up in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.